Everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Clubfittingchronicles. I'm joined here with Gene and Tyler, Mr. AZ himself. Now, Tyler, for the viewers, if you guys don't know who Tyler is, we're going to get a little bit more into that in this episode. A special guest of ours, Gene and him have been communicating vigorously for the past few months, and I'm sure you'll hear more about the episode. But Gene, what do you think about tonight?
I'm looking forward to it. Tyler and I have exchanged, I think it's around 36, 37 emails, which for those of you out there, that's not a lot. He's not number one. But, you know, if you have been contacting us, one of the things we want to do is we want to bring that out to the rest of our viewers, our listeners, to learn what he has learned and to, share things that he has learned that he doesn't want to learn anymore. So I'm looking forward to it. I've met Tyler about 17 minutes ago in person. And so I found out he just got back from Switzerland or Sweden. No,
Oh, wow.
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
No, Sweden.
You got it right
Switzerland. Okay.
Yep.
I had it right the first time. I was trying to correct myself. But anyway, yeah, looking forward to this episode.
Well, thanks, guys. Gene, Josh, I appreciate you having me on. I've spent many hours on long car rides with your podcast on in the car, so it's pretty cool to be on the show with you. And yeah, Gene, 36 emails, I think, is what it was. I'm just trying to get in your top 5, so I think I snuck in there. But
you got.
No, looking forward to the conversation, guys. Excited to be here.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're very happy to have you, Tyler. Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard from Gene and from what I can gather, you dabble a little bit in golf. You work in the golf industry yourself, yeah, there's a few things there, a little bit of background. Could you just tell the audience, who you are, what golf means to you, how you got into golf, stuff like that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll kind of back up at the start. Grew up playing a ton of sports, baseball, basketball, and then probably around the time I was 15, I kind of realized the dream of being an NBA or MLB player was probably not going to happen. So I wanted to get a sport that I could continue to play through college and past college, and just absolutely fell in love with golf. Fell in love so much that I think for about 2 summers in a row, I probably played maybe 5-6 times a week, just, working a part-time job and running out to the course, sneaking in a sunset 9. So got to the point where I ended up going to Penn State. And at Penn State, I went through the PGA golf professional program at Penn State. So just continued to play golf, get an education. And then once I graduated, I finished with the PGA certification. So then continued to work in golf. And, currently I'm still holding the PGA certification. I'm not currently working at a golf course. I took a boring corporate job, which I'm currently working, but, still love the game, play as much as I can. But really just had some incredible opportunities working as an assistant professional in golf. Got to travel down to Jupiter, Florida, and work down there at some amazing facilities. Jupiter is just an absolute mecca of golf at the moment, for, a lot of retired people, but also young professionals trying to make it big. And then in the summers, I got to work up in the New England section. One of the highlights of my career was working for the U.S. Open in 2022. For those of you who watched, Matt Fitzpatrick edged out Scotty Scheffler. So it was a really cool tournament. And yeah, like I said,
incredible.
Had some amazing experiences working in golf. The game has brought me so much that, just being a PGA professional, I got to give a lot back. Some really great experiences doing what I did.
Very
That's
cool.
incredible.
How did you decide to go into the PGA program?
Yeah, I like to think I have a better story, but I think I was just 18 and really wasn't sure what to do with my life. I think for me, I grew up with a family of teachers who just loved what they did. And that was kind of where I saw myself, loving the game of golf, and it's like, hey, I can make a career out of this, and that's why I went down that road. And truly,
Cool.
I met some incredible people working at the facilities I did. I got to do some really unique things. So, I don't have a great answer there, unfortunately. I think
that's
loving the game of golf. I want to be around it. So,
Yeah, that's an absolutely fantastic story. Jupiter, Florida. That's nothing to scoff about. That's a pretty big deal. But so when you were in college, did you play anything competitive? Did you play competitive golf? Like amateur stuff? Any like mini tour? Were you thinking about turning pro or doing anything like that? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, great question. So actually, we were pretty fortunate at Penn State. Our program was about 120 students. So we did a lot of competitive tournaments just among the students. So it was kind of like being on a large golf team in a sense,
That's cool.
Program. But then, once I graduated and got the PGA certification, I did play in a lot of professional events, which was really cool. Some section events. So competed in some individual tournaments, some team tournaments. Tournament golf was, as you know, Josh and Gene, it's different than regular golf. So it was great to get some experience doing tournament golf. Nothing gets your heart rate up like a 5-foot slider for a third score you're trying to shoot. But
Right.
yeah. Definitely played a ton of tournament golf, especially at Penn State, which was great.
Very cool. So let's spark your interest in the podcast.
Absolutely. So for me and throughout my career in golf, I fell in love with the teaching of golf and the golf swing, golf mechanics. One of my favorite jobs I had in golf was working down in Jupiter. I was an assistant teaching professional. So I was out of the golf shop pretty much teaching on the range all day. I loved helping your college player who could absolutely stripe the ball and maybe they just wanted to see a TrackMan number look a little bit different, to helping out a person get a 7-iron in the air for the first time. So, my path within golf just revolved around teaching and my love of helping others and, of course, the golf swing. Now, that ties to your podcast. And neglect is the wrong word because I certainly didn't neglect club fitting. But I guess it wasn't as much of a focus for me.
It's a lot of places it's not even talked about.
Right. I certainly had a lot of knowledge of equipment. I knew an 80-year-old lady should not be swinging a stiff flex shaft, right? But, kind of looking...
Well, not hard.
That's right. Looking back on my career, and what I've learned through your podcast, I just can't imagine some value I would have added to lessons had I just tweaked and talked a little bit more about, what the clubs are swinging. So really, I stumbled into your podcast through a mutual friend of mine who, Gene, you taught for, I believe, in grade school. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But Adam Porzak, who was someone I met at the U.S. Open back in 2022. Connected with him, stayed in touch. He was an incredible mentor and friend of mine, still is. And, he was on your podcast a few years ago, and I said, hey, what's this? This looks awesome. And just kind of fell down the rabbit hole and listened to probably every episode, a couple of them twice. But, for someone like me, not only did I look at your podcast and what I've learned is helping others, but, selfishly, I feel like I've gotten a lot better myself and I've learned a ton. So, a little long-winded there, but, a lot of my interest in your podcast ties back to my ties in golf, but then also selfishly my game myself. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that. Just that right there is enough for our viewers to really, grasp the importance of club fitting is way beyond, what normal people think it is. And, hearing your response on that is incredible just because that's kind of our mission, really. I mean, Gene and I was kind of the same way. Now I wasn't really, that much knowledgeable about the golf swing, but I played a lot of golf when I first met Gene, and I played enough golf to where I was a good competitor, but I didn't know anything about mechanics, right? Let alone club fitting. So it's like hearing that is really, it's awesome to hear, just because I was the same way. I had no idea what anything meant as far as like shafts or grips or stuff like that, and it's very cool to see people are catching on to that, and that's what we want, so that's good.
Yeah, and Josh, sometimes the less you know about the golf swing, the better, as you know. But
Oh,
no,
100%, 100%. I can agree with that for sure.
yeah.
I think my little finger on my right hand was pointing in the wrong direction when I was pulling it out of my pocket.
Right. That's right. And then again, kind of building off of what I shared, I do want to shout out, there's a good friend of mine who worked at a course in Florida. He was a master club fitter and builder, actually from Scotland, Gene, which I understand that's where you're traveling to in about a year. But, working and learning alongside him truly did spark my interest in club fitting as well. So he was just an incredible master of his craft. He paid so much attention to detail and everything, and he really was the first one to kind of teach me, hey, you add a couple extra wraps to the butt end of your club, that's going to throw off more than you think. So he definitely, his name was Neil. He jump started my interest in club fitting and club building, and I'd like to think you guys have continued to grow it. So yeah.
So with that grown knowledge that you have, what kind of takeaways did you get from it as far as for your own game? Did you see, things that you learned and you implemented, instant? I mean, what are some things that you saw or you noticed when you tried these things out?
Yeah, no, great question, Josh. One of the things, and I'll tell a little story here because this probably, I figured a lot of things out on my own, but then listening to your podcast, a lot of things started to click. And what I mean by that is, a few years ago, I was professionally club fit for a totally new set of clubs. I'm not going to name any brands, but it was like a tour van fitting experience. So I was getting, the best of the best, state-of-the-art technology, a bunch of eyes on me. And we were doing it in a simulator, and the numbers looked great. I was hitting a 7-iron 10 yards further. The dispersion was tight. It felt good. And ordered the clubs. I couldn't wait to get them. And they finally arrived. And Josh and Gene, I don't think I took a divot for about a year because I was fit for, these Tour X 130 gram shafts. It was absolute rebar. They were heavy.
Right.
And really, I stuck it out, right? So I got the clubs, just tried to hit through it, and, just kind of went in circles thinking it was swing mechanics, it was something else, it was, all the different rabbit holes you can go down with this great game of golf. And, one day I went to the range and I said, you know what, I'm just going to try something. And I brought an old 7-iron, and this was like a stiff flex 105 gram shaft. So way lighter, way more friendly, and took one swing with it and just ball first divot. And I hit the ball dead straight. And I was like, whoa, I haven't done that in, a year and a half. What was that? Grab another ball, same thing. Hit like 10 more, and I just didn't miss the center of the face. So then I go home, and next time I go play golf, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to try these old clubs again. These clubs at the time were maybe 10 years old, but like I said, the shafts were so much lighter and so much less flexible. And I go out and play, and I shot the best round I had in, again, a year and a half. And I tell that story because now listening to your podcast over the years, I know why that is. And simply put, I was fit for those clubs in TrackMan. I was swinging out of my shoes. I was probably trying to impress people. And, the numbers looked good. But when I went on the golf course, that was not the right feel for me. Those clubs were too heavy. They were too stiff. And therefore, that club, I just, when I got over it and I wanted to hit knockdown or take something off of it or shape a shot, and I just couldn't do it with that stiff and that heavy of a club. So then again, switching back to that older set was just absolutely life changing. And, it's something that, again, listening to your podcast, Gene, those clubs, they just seem to have the right weighting for me, the right shaft weight. I got them on the swing weight scale, and they just really checked out to what I needed to do. It turns out the old set I had was really lighter. I think they were all around a D0, which I know now I don't need. Again, at the time I was fit for them. I thought, whatever, it's swing weight doesn't matter. The numbers look good.
Right.
Why would I check the swing weight, right?
Exactly.
So, just that was a really eye-opening experience. Was, again, going down a path where I thought my swing was messed up and I wasn't going to recover, and then turns out it was simply just the clubs I was dealt and the clubs I was using. Again, long-winded. I hope that answered your question.
Oh, no. That's a story, unfortunately, that I've heard like more than once.
Sure.
Something I've experienced.
A lot of people they want to blame themselves. I must not be doing something right. Well, if I can't take a divot, and that's never been an issue before, something has changed.
Right.
It's plain and simple. And my guess is probably caused you to try to, overswing because that's extra stiff shaft felt like rebar reinforced. Right. And the only way to, whenever I am facing really stiff, I swing really hard, which then can help me come out of my posture, can do all kinds of other things. But no, it's not me. It couldn't be the clubs. It's me. I'm doing something
Absolutely
wrong. And it's not the case. Since we started talking, emailing and stuff, I know you went to try to be fit. Are you still searching a little bit? You going with what you have right now? What's your, because you've mentioned before building yourself a set.
That's right. Yeah. So fortunately I gained a lot of experience, just building clubs through my time working in golf. So that is the journey I'm taking. Gene was kind enough to guide me in the right directions. I sent him some swing videos, got his insight on certain shafts and weights I should just try. But where I'm at right now, Gene, I've settled on the Nippon Pro, the GH 950. So the Flex.
Yep. Good shaft.
I think they're right around 98 grams. So again, a lot lighter than I would have ever thought I needed. But I absolutely love the feel of these shafts. Again, you see my swing on TrackMan, and you might think I need extra stiff, but now I'm like, hey, give me that stiff flex. I want to feel that club head kick and release a little bit. So shaft wise, that's what I'm doing, and then I dug into the component world, which again, working at golf and being exposed to all the top marketing brands and stuff. This is, again, you told me 2 years ago I'm going to go ahead and get some sub 70 iron heads. I would have looked at you like you're crazy, but that's what I'm going to be going with. So I got some sub 70 heads in the mail. Okay. They're coming, and can't wait to put the set together. So I've got my swing weight scale. I'm going to weigh everything out, and like I said, I tested out a sub 77 iron with that GH Pro shaft. Tested out another couple of heads, different types of shafts around that 100 gram weight, and just fell in love with what I've got. So, yeah, really exciting stuff. But
yeah, and the thing that people don't understand, I mean, there are long drive guys who are using L-Flex shafts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Most people, when you're using something a little bit softer, you'll hook it a mile.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. Now, can you? Sure, you can make a bad enough swing. You can come in, with a closed face and, have the swing path, close to that closed face and everything else. And it can go, you can hit it a mile left, but it's not because of the shaft. Now, if the shaft feels wonky, too flexible, that would be a reason to say, this is not the shaft for me. But, most touring pros would have to be playing with double and triple X's, and they don't, because again, who wants to get beaten up by the vibrations at contact?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think another thing, Gene, looking back, I've been fit for clubs in my career probably 5 or 6 times at this point. Professionally fit, that is. One of the things that I do on the golf course is I hit a ton of knockdown shots, right? So I'm very rarely hitting an 8-iron 100%, I'll pedal to the metal, swinging out of my shoes. And, again, maybe to the fault of my own from not bringing it up, but, that was never talked about in the fitting is, what types of shots do you hit on the course? So a lot of my fittings, I might have been fit for something a little heavier and stiffer because I'm not hitting those knockdown shots in the fitting. And it's, the fittings are typically 45 minutes to an hour. We're cramming in as much as we can. We got to hit drivers. We got to hit wedges, right? So you're not getting like that true, I'll call it simulator to golf course experience. And
right.
Again, not all of that is on the fitter. That's more on me for not bringing up the knockdown shots.
Well,
but, it's something to
see,
with
as a fitter,
right.
my job is to find out what is your golf
exactly.
game.
Yep.
Because I need, a lot of the time the golfer doesn't realize how important what they are doing is to the fitting.
Sure.
And, understanding that gives me direction. When otherwise I'm just throwing darts at a person hoping to hit them with something that'll work.
Right.
But that's not fitting. That would be like going into the shoe store and somebody's in the back and they start winging shoes out at you. Try this one. Not a very effective means to come up with a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But, from a fitting standpoint, it's finding out, one of my first questions is going to be, are you working on something?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what it is you're working on because I'm noticing, oh yeah, you're coming way over the top. Are you working on that or are you satisfied with that? If you're working on that and that, you always want to hit a 50-yard fade, okay, you and Bruce Litsky, you can have at it. But I need to know all those little details about you. I was interested when in our email exchange you had mentioned, and you mentioned it recently, that nobody ever talked to you about shaft weight or what do you like to feel?
Right.
And, that's critical.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
like
if you like to feel the head moving through, and I give you a dynamic gold X, whatever, 100, 200, 300, and you're not going to feel that kick coming through. And so what are you going to do? You're going to keep swinging, trying to find
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you're never going to find it unless you're standing on the hood of a car traveling at 75 miles an hour up to the ball. And you make a swing, and okay, between the two, you got enough clubhead speed. But it's not what frustrated me as a fitter is when the golfer blames themselves and when the fitter doesn't ask the questions needed to be able to determine what is the golfer looking for.
Yeah.
Most golfers think all I got to do is have the newest technology. And the ball will go. I'll just set the club down behind the ball, walk away. It's going to go.
Yep.
And it doesn't work that way.
Absolutely not. No. Yeah. And, I was definitely guilty of that. The next year's driver's coming out. That should solve all my driver woes and whatnot. But, Gene, and back to the shaft weight, for my own game, the shaft being too heavy, it caused a ton of mechanical issues in my swing, in that the club and the shaft was so heavy that on the way down, that club fell way far behind me. For those of you listening, there's a great video of Tiger Woods in the late 90s. He's on a talk show with his coach at the time, Butch Harmon. He talks about how he's stuck in his downswing and the club's falling behind him. And, that's a very common issue for better players, is that club getting way too far behind. And again, that's what I fought for that year and a half that I was playing those X stiff 130 gram shafts. And I just thought I needed to do what Tiger was doing and get the club back in front of me. But all it took was switching to that lighter shaft, and boom, right on video, that club was coming right back down the line. Again, I was taking divots, I was compressing the ball. And yeah, Gene, to your point, it's amazing that shaft weight, there was a ton of emphasis on shaft flex, but shaft weight had never been talked about,
Right.
So,
And see, to me, the flex part is the secondary thing.
right.
The weight has to be right. The swing weight has to be right. Then we can talk about which one feels more comfortable. Does it feel better to have the shaft kicking through? Or no, I like to feel like one piece of like it's a telephone pole. And I don't want to feel any bend. And that's fine. That's a feel. And people are entitled to feel what they want to feel. I guess from your experience teaching, now that looking back at people, you see the young guy your age and he has the 70-gram graphite shafts because that's what they were on sale, what was on sale, or that's what the stock shaft was that they could order, and then they, have a tempo issue. Things that if you had that experience and you could go backwards, how would that change things for you, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends on the student, right? So I think for the younger player that's swinging out of his shoes, I try to, in a polite way, maybe find a way to humble that person and say, hey, we need to try this shaft, or we need to try, maybe something a little toned down. And let's just see what that does and experiment a little bit more with driver. But I think to get more specific, one of the things, Gene, I love that I picked up from both you and Josh is just playing around with lead tape and just seeing what that does to the strike of the golf ball on that person's swing. I found in my own game, and then just helping out a couple buddies here and there, 2-3 pieces of lead tape can make a huge difference. You put it on that club head. I think that looking back on my teaching, there were definitely lessons and clinics where I might have been asking a student to do something in the golf swing that their golf clubs wouldn't allow them to do. So I think I would definitely, looking back on it, and I would certainly marry the club fitting component with the teaching a little bit more. But like I said, that lead taping and just figuring out ways to alter how the club head feels for someone is just so valuable, right?
And there's no wrong way to do it unless you're putting it on the face.
Right.
Where the ball's being struck. Corey Pavin, I believe it was, had a piece of lead tape about a 1/4 inch down off the toe on the face side. And I knew a company that did re-chroming of clubs, and he was always told when he would re-chrome Corey's clubs, don't touch the tape. But that was the beauty. You had mentioned Adam. I used to get calls, Gene, can you come down and look? Adam is a great teacher, but he didn't do 4 club fittings a day for 8-10 years to start to figure out what was important, and didn't do the study, for the 10 years beforehand. And so, one of the things I've always encouraged people to do is you need to find people who are doing both. Somebody who's working with somebody. There were a couple of other pros, high-end pros that were teaching, Walker Cup and other, high-end college Division I players in our area. And I was forever getting calls. I remember when the University of Minnesota's women's golf team showed up one day, and they were out, and they had been fit by one of the big companies, and their comment was, "We can't hit these."
Yeah.
And it was a shaft weight thing.
Yeah.
I think it took 20 minutes.
Unbelievable.
And just to, watching you swing, you're pulling out of your posture. And I'm going to guess you don't normally do that. And it's because there was so little weight. Or on the other hand, I've had the high school girl getting a Division I scholarship, and the company, the big box store company down the street in Carlsbad, put her in a 120-gram shaft and made it an inch inch
Oh,
longer
jeez. Yeah,
because she kind of had a little bit of a flat swing. So after all, let's make that club really long for this 5'3" girl, and heavy.
unbelievable. Yeah.
How do you think I'm assuming you noticed right away when you went to the lighter shaft how you felt more of the head.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Was that
That was the first.
was that an important characteristic for
Yes,
you
absolutely.
for the
Yep.
divot?
Yep. That would have been the first thing I noticed. And, I definitely, draw back on my baseball days and playing sports growing up. I always liked a bat that felt a little heavier in the barrel, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
almost just hitting the older club for the first time with the lighter shaft and feeling the heavier head. It was like, whoa, this feels really good. This feels
Yep.
natural. This feels easy, right? It doesn't feel like I'm working as hard. So yeah, that jumped out right away. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of times golfers, and if you put your new clubs on the swing weight scale and your old club on the swing weight scale, the new clubs had a higher swing weight, my guess, just because they're. Yes, Josh, we can see you popping in and out. Josh was just texting because he's having trouble with his internet. Can you give us a talk and we'll see if we can hear you.
Well, you guys were just giving such a compelling conversation there. I just didn't know
I
if I
figured you
could.
went to the bathroom.
Well, I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to butt in. But no, I was also getting a little frustrated on my end, so I was trying to keep quiet so nothing could be picked up on the mic. But yes, I was listening to that whole thing. I was here.
No worries.
So, questions you have for Tyler, since you are doing all that listening?
When you were fitted by the nameless company, it's not really a question, but it's more so a relation. I also had gotten professionally fit at a fitting day for staff, staff members. I went with my boss who was on staff with this company, and I got fitted for a driver. Gene, did I ever tell you this story? This was last spring. I went to a fitting day. And, I had my current setup, which is a 65 stiff, and they wanted to put me in a 70X stiff. And they told me with how fast I swing the club, um, that I would need an extra stiff. I kind of argued with them. I was like, well, I don't really like the feel of a extra stiff. And they continued to put me in it anyway. And the numbers, the spin was lower, but it wasn't attributed to the stiffness of the shaft. So I was swinging this steel pole essentially, and they were trying left and right. It was the brand new driver; it hadn't come out yet, right? It was a demo day, so they had all the 2024 model clubs in 2023. Anyway, I tried to hit it, and I just couldn't hit it for the life of me. And I actually ended up getting the driver. I actually bought it. This was 2 years ago now, I think. 2 years ago. I actually ended up buying the driver because the cost on it was pretty low. But I couldn't hit it for the life of me. I played around with it, and I shot 85. I could not hit a fairway to save my life. You would think after the seventh time hitting it out of bounds that I would put it away. But I was trying. I still tried, as stubborn as I am. I still went ahead and tried it anyway. And then finally, by the 18th hole, I said I'm hitting through it. And it was the first fairway I hit all day. I threw it. But no, I think that just your story and what's happened to me, it has happened to so many other people in the golfing world. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about, that needs to be brought awareness to, just because it is so, misinformation as is, no matter what it is, it's so easy to be misinformed, right? But I feel like golf, with the way that golf is marketed, especially from these OEM companies, it lures these people in to the rabbit hole, if you will, of just constant club fitting misinformation. And you have these people, friends of mine, dear friends of mine, that are really good golfers. They believe in those things, that a new driver will automatically get them 5 extra yards of distance, when that's really not the case. But I guess one question I will ask you Tyler, since you were in the teaching world for a little while, you said you didn't really get into the whole club fitting thing until after you're out of that scene, so it would have really helped you with your teaching. But looking back on it, what were there times where you're like, yeah, whoever fit this person or whoever told this person this is kind of out of their mind kind of thing? You ever had those moments?
Absolutely. And, some of the reasoning of the student into why this club is in my bag was, almost worse than why they had the club, right? Yeah, Josh, and your story, I feel that. Just curious, Josh, what's your driver swing speed?
So my ball speed's about 165 to 170,
Oh,
like
can't hear you,
cruising.
Josh.
That's not good.
Try it again.
Can you hear me? How about now?
Can't hear you.
Good now.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. So my club speed is anywhere from like I'd say 115 to 120, give or take.
Right.
It's on the higher end, for sure. And then my ball speed's anywhere like cruising, it's about 165 max. The highest ball speed I've ever had is like 178. So, it's not
Yeah,
slow by any means, not the fastest by any means either. I mean, I know plenty of people who are faster than me, but a preference of mine. I like stiff shafts. I don't like X stiff. It's just not for me.
absolutely. So yeah, like I said, before listening to your podcast, I would have been guilty of saying you need a stiff or an extra stiff flex shaft as well. So yeah, I think though back to your question, one of the things I saw in students that you guys have talked about all along is just simply seeing what is trending, right? So my favorite tour player is playing this shaft. My favorite tour player
What I
has
need.
this set of. Unfortunately, the clubs that you are buying from PGA Tour Superstore and Dick's Sporting Goods are not going to be the same as what's in the hands of your favorite player. And, I learned that the hard way myself first getting into the game. But again, it really is just about, and coming from my experience, it was definitely a little bit humbling is kind of realizing, hey, maybe I don't need this heavy of a shaft. I don't need this stiff of a shaft. I actually don't need this name brand. I need something that works for me. So again, it's something I wish I had known while I was teaching, because I think I could have helped people even, 2, 3 times what I did teaching them. But I would say that's the biggest thing, Josh, is just seeing, and again, I was certainly guilty of it myself, just kind of that validation that I need to be playing what's trending and what's cool on the PGA Tour, right? So
Sure, sure.
The next thing you're going to tell me is that the cars, when I go to the car dealer, I don't get the same car as what I saw in NASCAR.
I don't want to ruin too much for you tonight,
I got to meet Hank Haney at a club fitting convention, and got to talk with him about, he was working with Tiger at the time. What is a fitting like with Tiger? Driver fitting. And you can tell me if you got the same treatment. Nike brings out 10 heads, 10 clubs shafted. And he walks by and says, nope, wrong loft. Nope, face angle's wrong. Nope, 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 nope. There's 2 left. He picks up one. Nope, I don't like the way that feels wrong. Picks up the other one. Oh, okay, we'll try it. Hits it one time and that's it. And then he'll come back another day, possibly, and hit it. I had the same experience. I got to watch Keegan Bradley go through an iron shaft fitting. And, the company was playing for, Keegan, you got to try this. You got to try this. And I just got done watching him build a snowman at the end of the range, because every ball was on the exact same path, turned at the exact same point, landed the exact same way.
He's a great driver of the golf ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is like he was hitting 5 irons or something like that, 6 irons, just beautiful. Had things lined up so I could see exactly the ball flight and how it was repeating. And then they brought him a club out, and he wiggled it. No. Keegan, you gotta try it. You gotta try it. And he kind of futzed around for a minute or so, grabs a ball, takes a practice swing, hits it, and it starts off on the exact same line, and all the other balls had turned left about 3 yards. This one fell about a yard to the right, and he tossed it over to him. That's why I can't hit it.
Wow, it's incredible.
But he isn't going to, he doesn't want the club, he wants his swing to be his swing, and he wants to see the ball flight. He wants to see, good players are looking through a 6-inch window.
Right.
For that ball to travel through. Most of the people listening to us are looking at a garage door up in space somewhere.
I was going to say a 3-car garage door, maybe. Right.
Yeah, maybe. Depending on the club. But, the idea that the club will do it for me is what the golf industry has suggested to the players. If you just had the right club, and it's ours.
Right.
And we've never met you, and we have no idea who you are, and we've never seen your swing. But if you go online, you can order it.
Absolutely. I mean, those guys have unbelievable feel, Gene. Actually, a really cool story building off of that. A friend of mine who was at the U.S. Open, the 2022 U.S. Open, that is, he got Rory's, I believe it was 2 drivers and a 3-wood that Rory was sent by his sponsor, TaylorMade, that week. And he hit those 2 drivers and the 3-wood. Something's off. I don't like this shaft. And right place, right time. My friend ended up getting those clubs. Yep. But, I mean, the feel on those guys is just unbelievable. And if, as good as they are, if they can't play certain clubs, then who am I to say, I can play this club.
Yep.
So, right.
I can play with anything.
Another story about Tiger I've read is he was sent, again, same kind of deal, 10 drivers. He gets back to the company. I think it was Nike at the time. And he says, I like the light one. And Nike's like, what do you mean? These are all the same weight. What are you talking about? Sent them back. And I think one of the drivers was 1.5 grams lighter than the other 9. And in an instant, Tiger felt the 1.5 gram difference. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable the feel those guys have. One of the best things I did for my game was actually going to a PGA Tour event when I first was getting into golf. So it's really eye-opening to see those guys on the range, see them practice.
That's my favorite place to go.
And then also you can get some peeks into what's in the bag, right? And just seeing what's in their golf bags, the amount of lead tape, the amount of different shafts and devices. I mean, it's unbelievable what those guys are doing. So. Okay. Oh, nice. AT&T Pro-Am. Okay.
I was the caddy. My friend wanted me to take over after 9 holes, and we learned we were leading the tournament in the Pro-Am.
Incredible.
And I said, no. And Jesper Parnevik was our pro, and I'm the guy reading all the putts when Jesper wouldn't read their putts. And playing out at Torrey Pines. And we're on the range, and I'm walking up and down the range. My friend's going, you want to hit some balls? No. Excuse me, can I ask you, can I touch that driver? I want to see how do I take that apart when it comes out in a few years. And I'm just walking up and down the range, just looking at everybody's clubs. And, like you said, there's lead tape everywhere. And I got a rope somewhere around my head. I don't know what I've done. Yeah. There we go. But anyway, my winning the San Diego, the Buick Open Trophy for I forgot what year that was. That was a long time ago. Let's see, 2007. So, you missed my trophy. Now that you're back, Josh. You saw it? No. I can't hear you. I bet you're showing up probably on the tape, because sometimes you talk to me and I don't hear a word you're saying, but it always ends up on mine. Well, I'm not hearing. Oh, there he goes. Well, Tyler, I greatly appreciate you taking the time with us. And I apologize, Josh. We've never had Josh having this much trouble before. And there's been times where he's popped in and out once or twice, but not like today. He's having all kinds of trouble. Any last minute words of wisdom to share with our audience?
No, Gene and Josh, whenever he gets back on, I appreciate the time and thank you for having me. I think, if anything, the game of golf, you never stop learning. There's always ways to get better. And listening to Club Fitting Chronicles has made me, I think, infinitely better. In that I've learned so much from, the weighting of the club, swing weight, length, lie angle, how all that affects flight of your golf ball. And again, coming from my background, who I thought I knew a decent amount, listening to your podcast and learning, I realized that there's still a long way to go for what I can learn. So, like I said, I really appreciate all that you and Josh are sharing. I think the knowledge you guys have is incredible, and the way you're going about it and spreading it on this podcast is a phenomenal resource for folks. So I appreciate it on behalf of your listeners.
And I am pretty mean at answering emails. I usually every 6-7 months I respond.
That's right. Yeah, if you ever have a question for Gene, you might have to play the Jeopardy song until he gets back to you. Now, Gene is an excellent resource. I was fortunate enough to receive an email back from him within an hour, and then, like you said at the beginning of the show, we've been going back and forth now only 36 or so times, and I'm sure there will be more in there. Gene's been a tremendous help.
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to hear when everything is together.
Yeah, I'll certainly keep you in the loop. So.
Well, it's later where you are than where I am.
That's right.
And there's Josh. We'll let Josh try one more time to talk. Nope, can't hear you.
All good. Well, Josh, enjoy the night range, man. Let me know what you're working on, okay? Absolutely.
Well, thanks again, Tyler. Thanks, Josh. It was fun looking at you popping in and out today. And happy Thanksgiving coming up. It's much warmer here in Arizona than it is where you're at, unless you're in Arizona listening. And I apologize for that. I had to send out 2 emails to friends, regretting to inform them that it's 78 degrees warmer here, our high temperature, than their low temperature. And it will only get worse. But that's the price that you pay when you have to live in a nice climate. And God bless, and see you, Sammy and Emma.